Busy days in Cosmos, I guess. We just had another major announcement yesterday that was a bit controversial, to put it like that. I think it left some community members a bit, with a couple of question marks around what does that mean for the Cosmos Hub? What does that mean for Atom as an asset? So I'm excited to have with me today Mac, the co-CEO at Interchain Labs, to maybe address some of the concerns, but also maybe paint or share kind of some ideas and thoughts about what are your next steps now? What are your thoughts around the Cosmos Hub as an L1 interchain service provider chain in Cosmos and beyond, and specifically also Atom as an asset? So I think what makes most sense, Mac, and yeah, welcome back. It's always great to have you here. I think what makes most sense if we start by you kind of recapping the past 6 to 8 months of taking over the leadership in Cosmos and being the co-CEO at Interchain Labs and all the achievements you had so far.
Yeah, um, happy to do that. So it's been 6 months, so about half a year. I will say that the first two or 3 months was mostly about completely restructuring the team. So we let go of a large number of people from the ICF. We hired in a lot of the former Skip employees, and then recently we've added an additional 10 to 15 people. Um, and then we merged a lot of the development arms of the Cosmos stack. So we combined the Cosmos SDK team and the Comet BFT team and the IBC team, and now it is all done in one place. Formerly, there were many different teams working on this, Strangelove, Binary, etc. So that gave us a chance to really direct Cosmos in a single direction for the first time really ever, because formerly it was too hard to organize things like that across all the different teams. And the first thing that we did with that was we said, okay, what is something that in the first 3 months we can ship that represents a meaningful improvement on the current technology? And our idea there was to ship this IBC Eureka, right? Which is basically an extension of IBC that lets IBC connect to a bunch of outside blockchains, right? So Ethereum, in the future, Base and Solana, and really extend Cosmos outwards to other places that it hasn't been able to reach before. We did that. We shipped it in 3 months. We launched it alongside the launch of Babylon. It's now the bridge that's used to onboard Lombard BTC, LBTC, Pump BTC, all the different BTC derivatives, and then also to export Baby back to Ethereum. And then recently it's been picked up by a bunch of other partners too. Over the last 3 months, we had an idea that, okay, well, Atom has never really had very strong value alignment with the applications building in Cosmos. What if we just opened up the Cosmos Hub as a permissionless smart contract layer so that we can move all these applications to building on the hub directly?
Mm.
Um, th that was really exciting for a while. We were able to pivot a lot of the teams in Cosmos that were really good into building something on the hub. But then we realized something, and we realized this, I would say, about a month later than we should have, which is a good learning for us, which is launching an EVM ecosystem today, right, or launching a smart contract ecosystem today is not something that is a question of skill. It's a question of money. And I truly believe this to be true. Um, we were talking to Phantom for an integration, 10 to $15 million. Talking to CCTP, many millions as well. Talking to MetaMask, 5 to 10. Talking to Chainlink, 2 million a year. Talking to Etherscan, 1 million a year. Talking about incentives just to get users onto your platform, 30 to $40 million a year. We are not a foundation that has 50% of its token supply, like many other foundations, or even 20% like Solana, with over $10 billion in the treasury. We don't have that kind of cash. And so we were looking at Berachain, which is, struggled to build an on-chain ecosystem. We were looking at Initia. We were looking at all the recent EVM and ecosystem launches and just saying, unless we have like $3 to $4 billion to throw at this, there's no way to guarantee success. And at a much lower number, it's very hard and you have to be really differentiated, right? Really different from everything else. And the truth is EVM is not differentiated. It's just not, right? There's so many EVMs. Um, and we didn't see the path to differentiation there for a couple of months out. And so that what sort of inspired the announcement today or yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned in the intro that it's been a controversial announcement. And I think, even for myself, right, I think the controversy comes more from the fact that us as core Atom holders, long-term Atom holders, core Cosmos believers, I think many of us at least kind of bought into that, the Cosmos
Yeah.
Hub is going to be a smart contract platform. There's going to be stride decks. There's going to be a vibrant native app layer, and it's all about the
Yeah.
EVM, right? And I think
Yeah.
one thing that caught most of us off guard, and I recorded a video today. I said like how I read the announcement last night. It was late in the evening here in Dubai, so I read it and I got excited, and then I came to the part where it was about the bomb dropping about kind of not deploying the EVM anymore. It's like, okay, wait, what does this mean now for stride decks? What does this mean for the Cosmos Hub in general? And I think the
Yeah.
surprising factor, and also the fact that many of us bought into this, is the controversial part around it. And if you have any kind of thoughts around that to maybe clear the air, I think the context you provided right now is definitely helpful. But I think for many cosmonauts, it's like, okay, where do we go from
Yeah.
here? And also
Yeah.
maybe in the short term also, what does this mean for not only us as Atom holders, but also for the strides out there? And I'm sure there's other teams that have kind of bought into this and were
Mhm.
lining up their dApps to deploy on the hub. So maybe you can
Yeah.
address that.
Yeah. Um, so I think I'm just going to give the extremely honest answer, which is we are a startup, right? Cosmos is a startup. It might be old, right? It might be 5 or 6 years old, but it does not have PMF with a large number of people, right? There are relatively few. This is true for crypto in general, by the way.
Mhm.
There are relatively few users. There are a couple things that have some good volume, Hyperliquid, Solana, etc. But when it comes to actual adoption and usage, it's nothing. We're talking, you know, a couple tens of thousands of users.
Hmm.
And I think when it comes to us taking over Cosmos, there's a tension, right? The tension is on the one hand, we have $280 million and we have a relatively large team, right? I'm not crazy, but like 30 to 40 people. And we have a very old tech stack, an old but also well adopted tech stack. On the other side, we have a token that has never really had true value accrual, right? And we have an ecosystem that has never seen massive adoption and world scale usage. And so, how do you square the fact that you have a treasury of like an Apple, right, or some huge company, but also you have a very nascent level of adoption for your product, right? I think what we weren't clear about is that we were treating everything like a startup because we are a startup. You can't not treat it like you're not a startup. I like act like you're, fully scaled or have something that has high PMF, right? The truth is, Atom does not have PMF. The stack does not have PMF. It has some users, but it does not have anything close to what real PMF looks like. And so I guess like that. So the answer really is we're all very early, right? I think we could have been more clear that this was an experiment. This was something that we were exploring. We were getting excited about it. And, I have a big mouth. I like to talk about things that I'm excited about. And I think other people get excited about it too. But at the end of the day, we need to be flexible to explore how we really break out of this bubble and we get to massive adoption. And I think when it comes to the EVM, the unfortunate thing about the EVM is it seems great, right? You look at Hyperliquid, you look at Ethereum, you look at Base, you look at Solana, you say, okay, this model works, right? You have a permissionless VM, the applications come, they deploy, they have some compounding liquidity effects, and then your token goes to infinity. Um, the reality is, and the reality becomes a lot more clear as you get closer to launch, is that one, it costs $60 million minimum to have the right infrastructure providers for your EVM, right? Which is the ones I just mentioned. Two, you need to pour at a minimum 40 to $50 million worth of incentives on that ecosystem yourself just to keep the users there. Because all these users that you're competing for are extremely mercenary, right? They're coming to use your DEX because there's better incentives than the 1,000 other DEXs that exist.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think additionally, you have to pay every single team that you want to launch yourself to come, right? And fund them completely, fund all of those teams. And at the end of it, it looked like $200 million to compete, like to have a chance at competing with something like Base, which pours out of its exchange business unlimited funds in terms of incentives onto their ecosystem, right? Because their exchange business is so profitable. Same thing with Hyperliquid. Um, and so we just sort of thought to ourselves, like, okay, so we could launch it, right? I mean, it's all ready, right? Like we could have easily launched it. It's not a technical issue. Um, but if we did, and we found out within, let's say, a year, all these teams would already be deployed. Their tokens would be live. Everyone's bought their tokens, probably, right? You know, like you, me, everyone else will be deeply invested, and then we have no choice afterwards of where we can go because we've already launched everything, and you can't unwind a decision like that, right? It's a one-way door, and we would have had to commit our entire treasury and had maybe 2 years to basically create some differentiated applications that would have like made it sustainable in some way. Um, and I think the truth is it's not even worth it, right? If you look at a token like XRP, no on-chain ecosystem, zero, right? If you look at a token like Stella or Hedera, like these have no on-chain Bitcoin, no on-chain ecosystem. Um, that's not necessarily the only way to create a real business in crypto that's worth over $100 billion, right? Um, and what we found was everything that we did with the EVM, we had to pay. But when it comes to the stack adoption and getting people to come to Cosmos, we had to pay nothing, right? So for example, TAC, right? Telegram's application chain, they were offered 50 million by a different foundation to build on their stack. 50 million, 50. They came to Cosmos for free, right? Just because it's the better technology. Like there is a group of very well incentivized real application builders that want to come to Cosmos not for EVM, right? They'll go to Base for that. They want to come for sovereignty and interoperability. And our thinking was these guys are willing to pay for these services, right? Unlike the EVM ecosystem where we have to pay for everything, they're actually willing to pay us. And we can monetize this and we can actually put time and energy into the stack that is already seeing incredible adoption because that's where we've been winning, right? Oh, this whole time that's where we've been winning is the stack. Like, and why are we trying to be something that we're not, right? Like the stack is extremely valuable. It's just never been attempted to be turned into a product that you can monetize. Um, and so I think that was the realization. We can always do the EVM in the future. There's no problem. I mean, there's no there's no blocker to doing that. It might be a little harder to restart everything, but again, it's just a question of money. If you can put down $60 million, you can get as many teams as you want, and you can get all the incentives, and you can have a successful launch, right? But you have to spend that every single year to keep it going.
That is definitely, I guess, helpful context for those that are maybe disappointed by yesterday's announcement. And I think at this point, one asset that the Cosmos Hub also has is a hardcore community that at
Yeah.
this point, I think it's just ride or die, right? And I count myself as one of them. I say this on the videos here on YouTube all the time because we've seen so much, we went through so much, but Atom is still there. It's still on page one on CoinGecko, which in itself, surviving as a coin on page one on CoinGecko for 5 years, in itself is already a decent achievement, I think, if you look at
Yeah.
many other coins that have not survived that are page 2, page 3, page 5. So the fact that Atom is still there is quite decentralized when it comes to its distribution. I made this tweet also the other day where the bonded ratio of Atom went up only for the past 6, 7 months to almost 60%, which is a good sign of kind of investor confidence if there was a measure for it. So I think there's definitely bullish signals out there. I think one piece that is missing, and to be quite honest with you, a lot of faith is in you guys now to fix this, is how is the Cosmos Hub going to be positioned, one as a network, but two also for Atom as an asset, right? You mentioned the H bars and the XRPs out there. So can you maybe speak more on that? If the Cosmos Hub is not going to be a smart contract platform, what will it be and what role will Atom play and how does it accrue value?
Hmm. So I think two things just to start off the answer to that. The first is we're not in the business of trying to find of taking Atom and the Cosmos Hub and then trying to find like a hammer and then trying to find a nail to hammer it on. That's not how you build a company, right? You can't have a solution that you think is so special and then force it on people and make them use it. Um, you need to start from the customer, right? So the first thing you do is you pick the customer. Like who is your customer, right? Is it the 14-year-old degenerates that are gambling on pump.fun? Is it 40 to 50-year-old males that are like just want to stake and otherwise have like day jobs in finance? Is it you know is it like agriculture companies? You have to pick who you're building for. And what we feel really confident on is that we're able to build for profitable businesses that are profitable outside of crypto, meaning they have real businesses outside of crypto. The next thing that you need to do is figure out, okay, well, what do these people need, right? How can we help their businesses? How do we build something that they will pay a lot of money for and can offer them a path to grow? And we truly believe that blockchain is a mechanism for them to grow their businesses. They can, there are a lot of use cases around, for example, tracking the origin of goods on distributed ledgers. There are a lot of examples of moving local currencies, things like points, right, or loyalty points, or even central bank currencies with CBDCs into like on chain. Um, there are many different pilots going on right now around digital identity and things like this. There are things that people want, right? And in my mind, if any of those businesses actually want to come on chain, they're going to need two things. The first thing, they're going to need sovereignty, right? They're not going to want to rely upon Ethereum. I know this. I've talked to them, right? They have no interest in relying upon some degenerate thing run by validators from North Korea as well as other places. Like there's zero interest. Um, they're going to need customizability, right? They're going to need to change the infrastructure to suit their needs. And then they're also going to need interoperability, right? Banks talk to other banks, businesses talk to other businesses, banks talk to businesses. All of these different things need to be connected. And in my head, the vision there is that that can be Cosmos, right? We can give every business their own blockchain and we can have them all be interconnected over IBC. There's nothing stopping this vision from happening, right? And we already have the signs that this is desired, that businesses want to come on chain now more than ever in history. They want to figure out how it works, but they want to have it on their own terms, in their own setting, and they want to be able to connect and slowly open up to the rest of crypto as they see fit. That's exactly what Cosmos lets you do. It's the only stack that lets you do that. So in my mind, that's where we need to start from, right? If we can build a $10 billion bit revenue business out of that, I have no doubt that Atom will be successful because we treat Atom like the store value here, right? Like that's how we see the value accruing, right? Like the Interchain Foundation like is the Atom Foundation. Um, I think when it comes to actual usage of Atom on chain, the reality is a lot of businesses don't want to buy crypto, right? That they don't want to be purchasing. Maybe they can't purchase crypto. They want to pay in cash. Um, they want to buy services. They want agreements. They don't want to deal with decentralized governance. And so we need to give them that interface. We can figure out how the value accrues to Atom later, but we need to give them that interface at a minimum. I think as they start to explore, as their chains come online, that's where we can start to introduce Atom as an asset and the hub as an infrastructure platform, right? Because, for example, let's say they come online, right, and they're a bank and they want to import the prices of different assets. We have already built Slinky, an Oracle provider that we used to sell for 250K to $2 million a year to all these different chains. And we can run that on the Cosmos Hub and we can export those prices over IBC, every single block into their chain, right? And then commit them on chain so that they can have the prices. Similarly, we can use Eureka to help them interconnect to all the other, business blockchains and outside, so outside of into other ecosystems. There's a sort of an infinite number of ways that we can start providing services over this super IBC connection to them from the hub directly. But I think you need to have two approaches. It's the same with Chainlink, right? Like Chainlink charges in cash, right? They don't charge in link. You have to pay them $2 million in cash, and then they integrate, and then afterwards they have Link that they use to pay their operators and validators. So you have to I think you have to meet customers where they are and not push your solution on them preemptively.
But that would be then like an off-chain business model, right?
Partially, yes. Yeah, I think to start it is.
What are your thoughts if we take Robinhood as an example, right? Robinhood, I think, I'm not sure, I haven't like looked or followed this too closely, but I think there was probably also some sort of incentive for them to build on or to use the Arbitrum stack. But that would have been a perfect example of a real business to go on chain to build their own sovereign execution environment, yet have full interoperability through IBC, right? So in that context, what you described earlier about like DVM deployment and some of the bottlenecks there, and like obviously there's very, very broad competition, but also the fact that high operational expenses and also some of these other foundations just having a 10, 20, 50x treasury, which means they can just incentivize more. Are you like potentially running into a similar scenario here if you focus on businesses? Because in the end of the day, the arbitrums out there probably have a couple billions laying around to incentivize them to build there, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. So, uh, Arbitrum paid Robinhood $100 million to deploy an Arbitrum. Um, they paid about half that, I believe, to Athena to build on the Arbitrum Orbit stack. Um, First of all, money is never unlimited, right? The Robinhood deal didn't actually change ARB's price much. And that means that they can not sustainably do this, right? That there is going to be a cap on the number of things, that there's only so many 50 to $100 million checks they can write. Additionally, that deal is for exclusivity on the Arbitrum Orbit stack for 3 years, I believe, 3 or 4. Um, so I wouldn't argue that incentives are going to win this story. Like I really do not believe this because one, like the size of these incentives is not truly size, right? Like for to get something like a central bank on chain or or like a major private bank, like $100 million is not enough for them to sign like an exclusivity agreement or to go on suboptimal infrastructure. And I am strongly of the opinion that given sort of how Ripple, Pack, Babylon, Ondo, Stable chose the Cosmos stack, even probably having similar bribes from other ecosystems, the best customers are always going to choose what's best for them because they're looking at generating revenues way larger than that, right? And they are looking at something that is, they're not going to have to rebuild in 5 years and ruin their brand and not have to be just like a sub point on like Arbitrum's, ecosystem map. They want to be their own thing, right? They want to be their own Arbitrum. Um, and so I think like that's going to win in the long term. It might be short term distorted in some cases by these like $100 million checks, but it doesn't bother me too much because we spend zero on all of that. And so every time we are getting $100 million richer according to like relative to the Arbitrum Foundation. Um, and we are still getting some of the best clients that they couldn't win even with that money. So that to me signals the real start of product market fit versus just like paid incentives.
You mentioned CBDCs, governments, even banks or like those type of like real TradFi.
Mhm,
How do conversations look like? Because, for example, if I'm a central bank and I want to deploy a CBDC and I want to
mhm,
run a pilot for it,
mhm.
how do you even like how do you speak with these organizations or governments in that case? And like what they mostly care about?
Yeah. So I can talk to like the structure of these pilot programs in the abstract. I'm not allowed to talk about some specific things here because things are actively in motion. Uh, So in general, the way that these pilot programs work is usually there is some movement inside the government to basically say, hey, this is a really good idea. We should explore this. So for example, in the case of the government of Colombia, and this is public knowledge, they allocated $400 million worth of spend to exploring digital asset solutions, right? And that was around the central bank. I think the after that, usually they go into a proposal phase. So they say what their needs are. They say things like it needs to run on our infrastructure. It needs to have this kind of TPS. It needs to have these kind of security properties, and it needs to be able to interop with, these other kinds of systems that we have internally. And then usually the different ecosystems will put forward an RFP saying, okay, this is how our technology could solve this. This is the roadmap. This is the cost, all those different kinds of things. Then it goes through layers usually of approvals. So the next stage, is often something like some kind of initial MVP where they test it, right? And they check some of these properties. Then it goes to some kind of like larger regulatory approval. And then finally it goes to an actual like test launch, right? And so they'll start issuing redeemable currencies on top of your blockchain stack. What we've found is that we see a lot of deals that have already gone to Solana and already gone to Ethereum, and they basically say, well, we don't want to run on their validators. We just don't want to. We don't want to run on their L1. Like we need to have our own infrastructure, right? We're a fucking government. Like we don't trust these Solana people. Like we have, 50 million citizens that we have to take care of, and we're talking about putting their financial assets on a chain. Um, and that has gotten us in the door many times because we are the only stack where you can build with no dependency on anyone else. There's nothing else in crypto that exists that can do this. Not anything in the modular world. It all depends on DA layers and things like that. Not anything in the L1 world. All depends on their native validator set. Nothing in the L2 world. All depends on Ethereum or the base layer. The only stack that can do this is Cosmos. And so it really, I think, excites them that like, oh wow, like we can experiment with blockchain with our own blockchain and not have dependency on like all of these other people that we don't trust. And that oftentimes is much more exciting than the incentives that, the 10, 20 million, $30 million incentives, because to them, that's kind of weird, right? Like if you're a government and so some, beady guy from Solana is there like offering you $30 million worth of SOL to build, it's sort of like that could get you fired, right?
Mhm.
Um, and and so I think that's really what we get excited about. And those conversations are progressing. There are some privacy clauses around many of them because they are with governments and are in active negotiation. But as soon as we can, we're going to be announcing a couple of those.
One of the things that is, in my view at least, the most unused weapon and has always been in Cosmos is the fact that until now, as you mentioned also in the beginning, until now, the tech basically sold itself, right? Like people just did their research,
Mhm.
They found
Yeah.
Cosmos. It was a killer stack. Like the origins of Cosmos date back to like 2014, 2015, OG for POS, obviously IBC, interoperability, sovereignty. So it's built around those values, and also the tech is there. But at the same time, we never had a core organization actively reaching out. And that's where Solana really mastered the game.
Hmm.
You look at what the Solana Foundation is doing. They have Breakpoint, they have Accelerate, they have probably right now, they have 5 hackathons going on all over the world. They have all these activations for community members, for content
Hmm.
creators. What are your thoughts on exactly that? Like, how do you activate, how do you educate people around the world? Because I think this also then trickles down to a local business, to a local government, right? To people that
Hmm.
need an entry point to actually learn about this stuff, because crypto is getting so noisy at this point where if you don't throw around $50 million in incentives, like no one will even
Hmm.
listen. What are your thoughts on that?
But I think the high level thing when I think of Solana is that like what is the accelerator program for the internet, right? Like what is the adoption incentive for building a website? Like this doesn't exist, right? Because when you want to build on the internet, you can learn, right? Because and it's because you want to access customers and build a program, right, that you can scale and eventually monetize. That's how I view Cosmos, right? Um, like this is like it is crazy to think that the future of blockchain is going to be Solana, right? Or is going to be like Ethereum, like a single L1. It's like bananas to me that people have been psyoped into thinking this. It doesn't make any sense. That's nothing like how the internet has been built, which over time is, many different servers all interconnected over, HTTPS and TLS. And, there's many different IP providers. And there, there's tons of infrastructure and everything is sovereign, right? If you build a company, the first thing you do is you rent out your own servers, right? From AWS to run your own website, right? You don't um, try to like buy some space on someone's super server. That's just not how it works. And there's no like accelerator for you to like be part of someone's like own internet. Like you just join, right? And Cosmos is the only one who like thought about that logically. I think everything else is like completely illogical to me over like a period of 5 to 10 years. However, I will say there is a large room for doing direct sales of the stack and this technology into businesses and helping build new products that really assist them and expand their business and that we can sell, right? In the same way that if you're, let's say you're designing a like an infrastructure company, like let's say AWS, right? You don't just build it and then just like peace out and hope people find it, right? Like you actually go to these businesses and you say, okay, like, what do you need? Like, how can we reduce your costs? How can we improve your distribution? How can we, decrease the latency of your application? And then you begin to offer those services, right? And now AWS is a $30 billion revenue company a year. Um, you know, far outstrips all of these other crypto projects combined. And that's a single company. There's also Google Cloud, there's Hertzner, there's, like Microsoft Azure. Like it's one of a very small market, or it's a very small part of a huge market, I mean. And that's how I think about these things, right? Like if you're going out to build a new internet, you know, your job is to go to real companies and sell them something that is going to improve their business so that you can become something like an AWS for a completely new sector, right? Your job is not to have a little closed server and try to like get, developers everywhere and pay them a ton of money to come build on it. Like that's not how like an actual world scale business will be created. And that's why I don't think these things scale. They just don't, right? Like they don't scale in terms of how open they are. They don't scale in terms of the flexibility that they're going to offer different kinds of businesses. And that's why you just keep seeing the same things, right? You just keep seeing pump.fun like things and dexes and some like small DeFi projects. And you don't see anything like the incredible diversity of the real world economy, right? Like, where are the social media networks, right? Except for kind of Farcaster. Like, uh, where is all the software that, where are the operating systems? Where's all the software that powers, like pizza shops and, like massage parlors and, hotels? Like, where is all of these things? Where is like the entire world economy? It's not going to be on like a single L1 blockchain. It's just not going to be. And I think it's like super clear to me. Um, but I think it's going to take time for people to like wake up to the fact that like that's actually what the future is going to look like. Um, so yeah, that's why I think it's going to be a much bigger motion than just something like running hackathons.
Yeah, fair point. I think I hear you on that in terms of if you just pay people to kind of deploy on your chain, it's not really sticking. But I also at the same time am a big believer in you need to really pick up people and pick them up on the ground floor, wherever that is. And for different regions, it means different things. But I think that's one thing Solana has really mastered is to build a global network of teams, communities, builders, developers, and to really incentivize them, of course, but at the same time also builds culture, right? And I think a lot of the things that you just described around the philosophy of Cosmos, Internet of Blockchains, I think it resonates with a lot of people. The only problem where I guess a lot of people are having question marks is like, okay, so which ticker do I buy now? Like, do I have to buy all these Cosmos tokens, or can I not just buy Atom and then that kind of covers it all? And I think until now, the answer has actually been the first one, right? It's like you actually had to buy all these coins because Atom did not represent Cosmos the way it should have or could have. And that's obviously another seminar, another conversation. But to make this more concrete, like how how do you think Atom can be positioned to represent that and to not only philosophically represent it, but to actually accrue value? And is it something around the asset in terms of the tokenomics? A lot of people talk about inflation. Is it around how to create a business model? Like what do you think does it take for Atom to capture value finally?
Yeah. So, so I think if you are, let's take the AWS example, right? AWS makes $30 billion of revenue. A lot of that is profit. It's one of the main profit driver. It is the main profit driver of the entire Amazon business. If you're excited about that, right? You love the product. If you're excited about like the kind of services they're offering, like what do you buy, right? You don't buy the all the different companies that use AWS. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. You have to buy like probably millions of different companies and things like that. What you buy is Amazon stock, right? Which is the stock that ultimately represents the holding of that entire business and entitles you, if there are distributions in the future, to a share of those distributions, and grows with grows with the revenue, grows with the business of AWS plus Amazon plus Kindle and all the other different side Whole Foods, all the different side businesses they have. That's what makes sense to me, right? If that's what you're excited about, then you would buy the company that builds it, right? And we have made every endeavor to make it clear to people that the ticker is Atom, right? Like that is what we are, that is what I'm constantly talking about. That is what we are exploring all value pro mechanisms to. And that is ultimately how I want people to think about if they're excited about this internet of blockchains, right? And if they are excited about this vision of this much more realistic vision of crypto where things are sovereign versus just crammed into one L1, then they know what to buy, right? If they are excited about that. If they are excited about a specific application that is using that technology, right? If you're excited about, let's say, Stripe, which is probably using AWS on the back end, you can buy Stripe, like no problem. But that's not buying the vision, that overall vision. That's buying an application, and it could be an incredible application. Hyperliquid is an incredible application. Um, and so that's really how I see the it breaking down.
I also want to ask a few questions because I made a tweet and asked also some community members to like share what questions they had for you. Wikix is having one like, what type of services Ondo Finance or Ripple, for example, would want from the hub, and also why Ripple chose layer 0 over Eureka.
Mhm. Yeah. First of all, Ripple, I think, chose Axelar initially because it's the only thing that has a bridge to the Ripple main chain. Um, I think the answer to sort of what these people wanted in general, I mean, we're first of all, we're discovering this. I can tell you some of the things that people have asked us for so far. The first was a fully functional EVM stack, right? So they wanted the sovereignty of Cosmos, they wanted the interop of Cosmos, but they also wanted EVM, right? Like there's a big movement about having a VM that's EVM instead of Cosmosm or Move or something else. And so that's what we built for them, right? And that was a product that was monetized by Evmos back in the day. That was their only source of revenue. We have not monetized it. There are definitely services around it that we could monetize and that we have already talked to customers that they would be interested in paying for, right? So the first thing is like additional stack components, and the Cosmos EVM is a great example of that. We built that. We got an entire new group of chains to come, right? Babylon, TAC, Ripple, Ondo, Stable, all of them are using this. Um, I think as we go forward, there are a couple of things that we want to additionally provide. So IBC Eureka is, to be fully fair, still in its infancy, right? It can only connect to Ethereum mainnet. It can't connect to anywhere else. That is not enough for a lot of these chains to want to adopt it over layer 0, which can connect everywhere. But we still need to add the Solana connection. We still need to add the base connection. We still need to add the Aptos and Sweet connection. Until then, it's not going to look competitive to layer 0. That's just the truth, right? That's because they want connections to Solana. But once they do, we're going to be able to bundle all of this into the stack that they're using. So we're going to have a distribution advantage for all of these different customers. That's what I think people don't realize is that when you're a customer and you purchase, your entire company depends upon the stack that we build. And then we also offer the finest or like the services that are fully compatible with that stack. You're probably going to take that one, right? Instead of something that's like kind of worked into it in some way. Because you know that whatever is getting offered by that company is going to always be maintained in accordance with the stack because it's the same company that's building the stack. So you're not going to have to switch off later. You know that you're only going to have one relationship and that you're going to basically be able to keep the people that you trust to a minimum and have just one relationship. And you know that customer is going, or that company is going to build for your needs, right? Because they know how you're getting built because you're building on their stack, and they're going to be able to add additional things on top of it, right? This is like the same, basically like the same way that like Apple does things, right? Like you're using an Apple computer. You're going to buy their software, right? You're going to use their app store. You're going to buy their iCloud services, right? You're going to buy an iPhone because it connects natively to your MacBook, right? Like that's how like real companies get built is they have these distribution advantages. And I think that's like what you can see with like the Cosmos SDK very clearly.
I think we covered pretty much everything. I think we could go on for like many, many hours. There's obviously a lot
Easily, yeah.
we can talk, and I always enjoy speaking to you, of course, and like following everything. Is there anything like from your side, final words like around the announcement that obviously, again, like was perceived controversial for many people, including myself, to be very honest with you.
Mhm.
What are your final words for things that you're probably like excited, bullish, forward looking for the next couple of months without, of course, making too many big predictions or things that I guess a lot of things are still work in progress. But yeah, well, just share your final words.
Yeah. I think my final, so I think a lot of this is about expectation management, right? A lot of people expected something and then something happened that was not according to their expectations. I think the truth is you should be investing in Cosmos if you understand the fact that me and Barry are in startup mode, that we are trying things, we are experimenting with things, And we are not going to stop until we find something that is really good, which means it's something that's like 100x growth. We're not going to settle for something that is 20% growth or 50% growth. We're just not going to do that. It's not why we're here. Um, and that means things are going to shift, right? I think the main difference between Cosmos and something like Avalanche or Solana, right, which are all like Solana just tweeted, Solana is for institutions. When has Solana ever been for institutions? They're pivoting their strategy too. Um, we are very open about it, right? And we're extremely transparent with the community about when we ship things. And we don't do things behind closed doors. We actively talk about things as soon as they have been decided. And that means that there's going to feel like there's a whiplash, right? And like that's just how startups work. Like when we were Skip, we started as an MEV company, right? We did that for a very long time. Everyone raised, like we
Remember.
raised funds as an MEV company. We raised 6.5 million, then 15 million. And then we became Skip Go, right? Which is IBC.fun and Interop and all those things. Then we became an Oracle company with Slinky and we were selling that. And
Mm.
then like throughout all of those pivots, right? We still had the same group of customers, which were Cosmos chains that we wanted to serve. We just changed our approach, right? And we built better and better products. And sure, there was some whiplash for the investors, for ourselves, but that's also how you need to grow, right? Like you have to do that. And if we're not doing that, if an ecosystem is not doing that, that's where I start to get concerned because that means you're happy with like what you have. And you're happy with mediocrity, probably, right? And so I apologize to everyone about the shift in wins. That's how it's going to be. Because we are exploring, we have a huge amount of runway to do so, and we're going to be iterating until we find something that is really good. That's the mode we're in, and ultimately, if that's too stressful, it might not be the best time to invest. But if you are excited about that journey and you have faith in sort of us and faith in the progress we've made so far and faith that we can monetize this incredible advantage that we have as an ecosystem,
Mm.
it could be the best time to invest.
That's strong closing. But yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, and I guess a lot of people are also in the same boat, is it's just about, as you mentioned, this expectations. And also I think how it's been kind of communicated was like, oh yeah, this is going to happen. And now it's a shift in direction. But I also do not doubt that you took that decision with a long-term game plan that has more upside for Atom and for the ecosystem. So I think no one doubts that. But yeah, I appreciate your time. Also remember, 2022, many in Colombia, the very first panel with Barry, Sunny was the moderator, and I think Sean was also there from Megatech. That was I think the most legendary panel we ever had at Customers, and also the first time I met you guys. And yeah, it's only been like 3.5 years, like not even 3 years
Okay.
since then. So to see also the story about Skip you just recapped, how much is possible in a couple of years, it's definitely very promising. And I think, again, I'm a ride or die cosmonaut. I think many of us, I guess everyone, or like 80 or 90% that are listening to this video are ride or die cosmonauts at this point. So yeah, I think also for those people, maybe I know you're super active in all socials, on Telegram, you're on all the chats. I think you're also very like responsive to feedback, whether positive or critical feedback. So yeah, I encourage also everyone to share that, but be always, of course, respectful, be always civil, and I think we can really make Cosmos what it should be, right? Which is a top five, top three ecosystem or chain or coin. So we'll see. But appreciate your time. I'll let you go and hope we can do this in a couple of months when Atom is in the top 20.
And so too. And so too. Thanks, Cito.
See you, man.